Welcome into another edition of Pete's Pigskin Preview presented by Riverland Roofing. I'm Neil McCready. That, of course, is MPW digital football expert Pete DeWeese back to get us ready for the one that we've been talking about for a while now, Alabama and Ole Miss in Tuscaloosa. It's the 15th ranked Rebels, the 13th ranked Crimson Tide, 2:30 Central Daylight Time on Saturday. The game, of course, at Bryant-Denny Stadium will be televised on CBS. We're going to dive into that a good bit. We're going to look back at Pete's going to look back at Ole Miss, Georgia Tech a little bit, and then get you a primer on Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe, who will start against Ole Miss, according to Nick Saban, both on Monday and again on Wednesday on the SEC teleconference. Saban doubling down on Milroe being the guy for the Crimson Tide. So we'll talk about all of that in just a minute. We'll get to Pete in a second as well. First, I want to ask you, would you like some peace of mind knowing that your roof is taken care of? Whether you need an inspection, a new roof, or a maintenance program, Riverland Roofing has you covered, home or business. As a GAF Master Elite contractor, they can offer warranties that last a lifetime. Licensed and insured, Riverland services Mississippi and its surrounding states. So text or call Riverland today at 662-644-4297. Mr. Deweese, how are you, sir?
Good. Glad to be here talking ball. This looks like it's got a chance to be a good game, and it's kind of been fun prepping for this one.
Oh, good. Yes, it's got a chance to be a good game. It's got a certainty of being a big game. I think it's the biggest game Ole Miss has played since the LSU game last year, and I think it's arguably the biggest game that Lane Kiffin has coached at Ole Miss.
Yeah, I don't. I'd have to sit down and really look at a schedule to try to rank them, but for it to be early in the season, and the season where we still have so many questions about so many teams, it feels very heavy, you know.
Yeah, I guess I should clarify, right? I think that if Ole Miss wins, there's a path to Atlanta. There's a clear path. LSU's a big giant tiger in the middle of the path, but it's a path. If they lose to Alabama, given the fact that they still have to face the aforementioned tiger, and they still have Georgia down the road, that path gets really difficult. It gets difficult to navigate. You got to have a lot of outside help, and then you can't stumble at all against A&M or an Arkansas or Mississippi State or whatever. And there's no guarantee that doesn't happen. We've covered that ground too. So to get off to the start that you want, to prevent, the LSU game from becoming a backbreaker on September the 30th, it's a big game, and it's a chance to get over that hump. And Kiffin's talked a lot this week on Twitter. He's backed off in real life, but on Twitter, he's talked a lot. And so he's sort of dropped the gauntlet, I think, a little bit. And so a win's big, and a loss kind of lets people go, there's just a lot of talk there.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it feels like the LSU game last year to me. And so it's funny that you say that, because that was kind of the one, right? Well, going into that game, people felt good about it. Ole Miss obviously didn't play well, didn't win the game, and it felt like such a blow. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, as the season got into the back half, everybody kind of knows how that played out. So I think, this one, who knows if it becomes a blow if Ole Miss doesn't play well. But it certainly has a chance, it certainly has a chance to, I think, propel some momentum going forward. Yeah. Obviously, you get a couple of tough ones in a row, or within a short stretch anyway, and you got to handle business in both of them. But it should be a good matchup. We're going to see. I think, last time Ole Miss played there, obviously was, there was not a lot of popcorn on the Ole Miss sideline. They had it ready, and it didn't get eaten.
Didn't pop.
And I think so. It's interesting to kind of see the comments from Kiffin again this week, knowing all of that. So I don't know. Maybe there's just a confidence in the room. Maybe they feel like they're going to get a couple guys back. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm curious to see how it plays out. That's for sure.
All right. Well, the floor is yours. Take it away, my friend.
So we're kind of going to go back and look at Look at some Ole Miss offense versus Georgia Tech, and there's probably some things that could be said about the Ole Miss defense. They were good at times. They were not great at times. I thought they were actually pretty good on first and second down. There were some times in the game where on third down, I didn't think that they were great defensively. And I do think some of it is, I think Georgia Tech, to their credit, had a great plan offensively. I think Buster called a great game. I think they did some things maybe different than what Ole Miss was expecting. And the other thing I did was, I think they did was they caught some personnel packages and some different things. Ole Miss would sub into one of their rush looks, and they're playing with 3 down linemen, and they've got skill bodies all over the field. And Georgia Tech comes out and runs the football and kind of surprises them a little bit. So there were some things there. I definitely think there were some things where Ole Miss probably wasn't overly pleased with communication defensively, particularly on some of the quarterback read stuff, quarterback run game. But they weren't bad by any means. Offensively, Ole Miss put an emphasis on trying to come out and run the football better after what had really been 2 kind of average showings. In this is going to sound funny. Jackson Dart had a lot of yards. Statistically, Ole Miss ran for more yards. They still were not great running the football. In a lot of their base inside run game, they weren't great. I think they were better. I don't think Georgia Tech had as good of a defensive line as Tulane did. And so I kind of wanted to look at some of those things. And then there's a couple other things I figured I would kind of go ahead and look at and talk about while we're here. So we're just going to start off couple things from early in the game, couple things from later in the game. Just, some things that I thought I'd kind of point out to everybody and maybe kind of look at. I think this is kind of funny to me. This is the first offensive play of the game for Ole Miss. And I actually kind of mentioned this after the Tulane game about how Ole Miss has really started with the same type of scheme in each of the first 2 games. They started with a boundary flood concept. And in one, they got in a stack formation and they ran a sail concept to the right side of the offense, into the short side of the field. Game 2, they basically did the same thing by bringing a crosser from the back side of the formation. Ole Miss starts game 3 the exact same. I mean, is it the exact same scheme? No, but they are getting to the same principles. They are doing the same thing. They are flooding the defense with a flat player, an intermediate out route, and if this route had been able to stay on his feet, would have been a deep clear out route. And they're creating those levels in the defense. So that's just one of those little things that, to me, I find fascinating, because they have chosen to start each game like that, right? So I'm curious to see, is it something about getting Dart comfortable, getting him in a read that he likes? Is it something about is it something just to do with something they've seen schematically? I'm curious, and I'm curious to see moving forward. Is it something that Ole Miss tries to build off on? So, you can see play 1 from last week. It's acting a little weird on me. But play 1 from last week, Ole Miss motions into a bunch set, and they build the flood by taking the outside receiver on the deep out route. Against Mercer, it was coming from the inside guy. Against Tulane, it came from the opposite side of the field. The flat is open. Dart takes the flat. And, Ole Miss, again, 3 games in a row, they have started the game with an explosive play offensively and been able to get into their offense pretty quickly. Tulane, obviously showed a lot of movement against Ole Miss, a lot of pressure. Tech was not going to come out and be static. They came out and brought different looks as well. They had backers insert late, which is something that we saw from Tulane. They had defensive lineman twist, and you get it right here, first play of the game. They clearly saw on film what they thought would hurt Ole Miss, and they came out to attack it from the jump. And it's not the cleanest protection, but Dart was able to kind of step up in the pocket. Okay. Couple plays later, one of the comments that Kiffin made following the Tulane game and leading into the Georgia Tech game, he talked about how offensively they should have probably run more gap scheme, right? Zone schemes, you've got guys working together in combos, and everybody's responsible for a zone, where in gap schemes, you're interchanging bodies to create new gaps, okay? Some teams are very heavy on zone schemes. Some teams are very heavy on gap schemes. A lot of teams live somewhere in the middle, and Ole Miss in the past has been they use a lot of their gap scheme for their quarterback run game and quarterback reads in particular, where they're running some type of a read on the defensive end. They don't necessarily do a ton of interior gap schemes with their backs, but they came out early in this game, and they get into a gap scheme pretty early. And I'm actually going to go to the end zone view of this. But, for guys that may have grown up playing football, whether it was the 90s or the 80s and going all the way back quite a while, old school wing T buck sweep looked a lot different when you were playing at small Podunk High School, or not so small, not as Podunk High School, and your coach was wearing the short shorts and the tight shirt and had the dip in. This looks a little different. You're not under center. There's not a fullback right behind you, right? But they're essentially getting to the same principles. They're going to take the tight end. He gets a great block on Tech's defensive end here. They're going to block down with the tackle, and they're actually going to pull, in this scenario, the center, I believe, and the backside guard. They're also going to take the running back, and they're going to lead with him. So they are now creating extra gaps. If you were to build the wall right here, when you add the running back and the two pullers, you're essentially creating 3 extra gaps post snap that force the defense to fit. So it was a nifty way for them to get into the run game and get the ball out of the middle. They saw so much against Tulane where we saw guys crossing face inside as defensive linemen or backers blitzing into A gap or looping from the outside in. So they wanted to come out early, I think, and set the tone to get on the edge. Okay. And right here, they do a great job. Again, you watch 88 right here on the defensive end. He does a great job, lifts, gets some separation. It's okay if that guy's in the backfield a little bit, as long as you're washing him down. They get that. Their pullers get out in front, turn. And if Judkins can get to the corner there, it may have even had a chance at a big play, but he's having to sort through the traffic. Dart sees it, is able to turn it up. And so you're early in the game. You're showing a new wrinkle, something you haven't necessarily done this season, and you're getting the ball outside of A gap and on the perimeter to one of your good athletes. So I thought that was an interesting way to start. Now, we've talked a good bit about the tight end position at Ole Miss, what it looks like from a depth standpoint, and kind of where Ole Miss needs to get better. So this is another example of a gap scheme, and they're going to run counter. Okay, they're going to pull a guard, and they're going to pull trig here. All right, so what they're essentially doing is they are going to block down, and because of the front, you have to do what's called choke the center. You have to take him all the way back versus this tight front, because you make it difficult on this tackle to cut off this end, and you can't account for this outside linebacker off the edge. So what you're going to do is you're going to choke or swipe the center back, so he's responsible for anything A to B gap, and then you're going to slam the inside gap with the tackle, and then he's going to peel back or hinge backwards, so that if you get this extra rusher off the edge, in theory, you're protected weak. So because you're a spread offense, you're not playing with a true tight end or fullback or anything. We're not used to seeing that these days. What that means is I can account for him. I can account for him. I'm good here. I'm good here. When the guard pulls, what you expect to happen versus this front, the reason they bring in the motion is if there is a defender outside, you need that defender to either be forced to take the motion or delay his inside fit. Because what you want to happen right here is number 4 to scrape and end up on your guard. In pre-snap, if they're in a different front, number 4 would actually be Trig's responsibility. But here, because of this scrape, because of the front they're in, playing these 2 4 eyes with the head up nose, what really should happen here is as 4 scrapes and ends up being the guy that gets kicked out and Trig comes around, he should actually have eyes backside for 13. Okay. And you'll see right here on this run, they've got everybody sorted for right now. Trig has to get vertical. And if he gets vertical, and so he's reading the block of the tackle there, or of the guard rather. So as this guard pulls, if he sees his numbers out, then he should fit inside. If he feels like the hip turns around and the numbers disappear, then Trig's going to scrape over the top to the outside. Okay. Here, the guard kicks out. If 0 turns up right here and gets a hat on 13, the motion has affected this deep safety, and you can see the ball spits right there.
Oh, yeah.
So when we talk about the importance of that tight end in this offense and how much it can give them in the run game, this is just a very basic example of what is a minimal gain by Ole Miss. I mean, I think you're looking at a 4 or 5 yard gain at most here, 6 yards, that would have absolutely been an explosive play, and you're one guy away. And right now, that guy is the position that you've been missing from a health standpoint.
And that's a play he should be able to make, right? That's
it's one, yeah, you know, and it's one that you want him to make. His eyes, you can see, I mean, it looks to me, his eyes are on number 4. He's thinking I've got 4 because he's expecting the guard to have to kick out somebody else. So he's fully tracking for 4. Well, now he realizes, oh crap. So he tries to get to the next guy 5, and he doesn't realize, right? If the defensive structure was different, so let me explain this. If either of these ends had been outside of the tackle, the blocking scheme changes. If the end here to the right of the offense, the left of your screen, is outside, he would have blocked down and ended up most likely on number 13. If this defensive end to the left of the offense, the right of the screen, had been outside the tackle, now there's no need for the center to choke all the way back. So instead of swiping back to this end, the center and the guard would have comboed to 13, and Trig would have ended up most likely on number 4. But because the way the front plays out, the fit changes for the defense, but so does the blocking rules for the offense. And you have to be dialed in on what all of that looks like. Okay. Now, these next 3 plays, for a lack of a better word, I'm going to be, well, I want to show the touchdown drop actually here. And I don't like feeling like I'm picking on 0 here, but I do want to show because the design is nice. Okay. This is a concept that you see other teams run versions of. It's actually a concept that we've scored on this season. Very similar to this. Okay. What Ole Miss is going to do here is they're going to push the back out in motion. And what they're trying to do is either get the corner to expand or to get one of these inside defenders to expand. Okay. And unless the back is just naked and uncovered, it's really not where the ball is trying to go. Okay. They are going to take Trig. He's going to run at the corner, and then he is going to work to the back of the end zone on a post route. They're going to take 11. He's going to go run what's called an OTB. He's going to go try to own the space between those 2 linebackers and settle down over the ball. If it were zone, he'd be expecting to get it. They're going to bring the 3rd guy here. He's going to come between 1 and 2. He's going to push vertical, and then he's going to run this little stop route or sit route right here. The idea being, if it's man-to-man, the outside release of Trig should give him a chance to win inside versus the outside leveraged corner. And if it's zone, you're now working to high-low whoever is on this sit route. If he drives the sit route, the post is open behind him. If he carries the post, the sit route has a chance to now be open underneath. And so you can see, and I'm going to skip to the end zone real quickly. You can see exactly how it plays out. Let's see here. They get the motion going. The defense adjusts with a linebacker. Okay. Right there, boom. He realizes it's man-to-man coverage. He's hugging him. He's hugged by a defender. Look at the window you've created between the two. That's exactly where the ball is going to go. Dart would like to probably have this one back and get it down just a little bit. It's slightly behind Trig. That's a catch that you expect him to make. But they did exactly what they wanted to do. They divided the defense. They cleared out the underneath coverage. They expected man-to-man. They got man-to-man, and they vacated that window for him to drive the ball. The timing is perfect. It's just barely behind, and you want to be able to make that play and finish that thing in the end zone. The kind of last three things I want to look at from the Ole Miss game, admittedly, are me being petty. Okay. So there was a good bit of discussion after the Tulane game on the message board where people were talking about, Ole Miss, they never throw routes over the middle. They don't have curl routes. They don't have dig routes. Statistically, in the last 10 years of football, the dig route is the most intercepted play in football. Jackson Dart threw an interception against Georgia Tech. What route was he throwing? He was throwing a dig route.
I guess it was a dig route.
Right? A lot of modern defensive structure works hard to guard those windows. So what you may think of and what we used to see is these 10-yard button hooks and those things. The structure of defense doesn't allow those as much as it used to in a lot of schemes. There's ways you can still attack that space, but so much happens now by clearing a guy vertical, bringing a guy underneath, and finding that intermediate behind them. So these are three consecutive plays by the Ole Miss offense. Okay. The first one they're going to run right here. It's an extremely common scheme right here. Okay. They find an interesting way to get to it. So this is called dagger. Okay. What they're going to do right here, they've got three receivers in a kind of a loose bunch, and they're going to take the middle receiver, and his sole job is to flush the coverage. He is trying to take any safety or deep secondary player on this side of the field and flush them, drain them out of the concept. If for some reason it opens up, you're in the progression, the quarterback's going to hit you for a big shot. But truthfully, what they're now trying to do is they are going to take one receiver, they're going to bring him behind, and he is then going to go work the intermediate dig here, while another receiver works to now go grab this linebacker and try to pull him out and separate the defense in that manner. Okay. You can see here, Ole Miss does exactly what they want. There's Heath. He's pulling the linebacker right there. They have flushed the safeties. Here comes the dig route. Okay. Judkins is coming to run a check down. So right now, there is one guy that can affect this throw, and it's this linebacker in the middle of the field. With a little bit of time, if he comes down on the back, you've opened up this void to be able to drive the dig. If he feels like the backer is deep, he's going to work the underneath to the running back right here on his check down. Here, he takes the running back, and I'd be willing to bet that Lane told him in the film room, or Chart Weiss or whoever, that he probably got there a little bit early, because you can see the dig route is coming open right over the middle of the field. You're talking 12, 13 yards downfield. It's not some big, deep post route. They are trying to work the intermediate of the field right there, and he gets to his check down very early. If you look at it from the end zone,
that's where you wonder if that's Jackson reacting to the previous games where there was a lot of pressure and not a lot of time.
There's a clock in your head for sure. And this is a scenario, Tech's not bringing pressure right here. They bring a 3-man rush. The pocket's clean. He feels like this backer's getting depth. So what does he do? He takes his check down. And you see the dig is just a little late getting into that window probably. Yeah. And he doesn't feel comfortable, so he takes his check down, tries to let his athlete go be a playmaker. So very next play. Ole Miss comes back. Okay. Again, we don't throw curl routes. We don't throw dig routes. Ole Miss doesn't work the middle of the field. Okay. We can, I'm not going to argue with you if you say Ole Miss doesn't really throw running back screens, because it's not something, we've seen. But if you watch what happens here, Ole Miss is literally running 2 curl routes on the same side of the field. And it's freezing up on me, but they come out with 2 receivers to the right, 2 receivers to the left, and both receivers to the left run curl routes. And as a result, you can see, and we'll go straight to the end zone, maybe get a better picture, but you can see the linebacker drops right underneath that intermediate curl, and there's nothing to clear it out. And there's the almost interception right in that window. It's a good play by the backer, but you see how quickly those windows close, because so much of what we're seeing from modern defenses is built to really protect that part of the field and to funnel the ball to different areas. Okay. So here is very next play. Ole Miss is going to come out, and they're going to come back to, again, another route. I kind of laughed even watching the game live. I was like, maybe Lane was reading the board and saw people complaining about not throwing over the middle, because here they are 3 plays in a row trying to attack it. So they come out here. Now they get into a 3-by-1 set. All right. And they're going to try to work this dig route over the middle. Play starts, ball gets snapped. Okay. This is very similar to what they were doing in the first one I showed you 2 plays ago. But now, instead of having a player on the inside to clear things out, they've eliminated that. So they're going to try to go grab the backer here with 88. They're going to try to push to the dig here with the slot receiver. And they're just trying to work the high-low on that intermediate defender. There's the ball, and they complete this one. So they almost get one picked off. They take a check down on one. And here you've got a curl to the backside from the single receiver. You've got the dig coming here from the 3 receiver side, and they work the curl over the middle for like a 12-yard gain. So, my point is this. I think people sometimes get caught up in what they see or what they think see, because so often what we see, and not just, everybody, me included, what we see is what gets completed. It's what gets missed. That doesn't mean that other things aren't present in the system. Ole Miss certainly has the ability to attack every part of the field, and they're going to have to, I think, on Saturday. So shifting the focus, going from one offense, getting into another. I watched some of Alabama's defense. I cannot pretend to tell you enough about T-Rob or Kevin Steele. I know who both of them are. I've met both of them before. I don't know them well at all. But I couldn't pretend to tell you that I watched the game and saw a difference between the two. I'm not going to lie about that. Okay. But I thought it was interesting, one, that Kiffin made that statement publicly.
For sure.
But 2, that they caught it. Certainly makes you think that if he's saying it, that there is something to it. So what I wanted to do was kind of focus on some plays, and I actually started on the wrong one here. Focus on some plays from the Texas game, because it's the quarterback that Ole Miss anticipates that they will see on Saturday, and just kind of give some overall thoughts about certain things. One of the things that as I watched every offensive snap of this game in the last couple of days, he missed some throws. He made some not great decisions, but it's not like he was awful. And so Saban's decision to bench him against USF, I think, is interesting. And I think some of the quotes and things that I've read this week just talked about, there was the leadership they needed to see when he was on the sidelines at USF. Maybe that's what all this is about. Maybe I don't know. he does things in this game that are very promising for a guy that hasn't started a ton of football games at this level. There are things about him that if you're Ole Miss, you have to be very conscious of. His legs have obviously been talked about, but there's some other things. This is early in the game. I think 4 snaps is like maybe I think it's either their 4th or 5th snap of offense, and they're coming out and they have confidence in him to throw the ball down the football field. They are not afraid to take shots to try to loosen up the defense. And obviously everybody knows what he can do with his legs. And so for Ole Miss, to me, there's going to have to be a mix of how much can we play man-to-man on the outside to keep the box and heavy against the run, because Alabama's certainly going to try to run the football. How much do we pressure and worry about Milroe getting out of the pocket and going to make plays? I've seen some guys talk about putting a spy on him, and that's not always the easiest thing to do, because when you say, okay, we're going to take one player, we're going to commit him to being a spy on the quarterback, you're not playing defense with 11 anymore.
Yeah, it changes all the principles, right? Changes all of your math and everything.
You're playing with 10, and there's times where the 11th player becomes part of the scheme, right? But essentially, you're playing man down. So yeah, it absolutely changes some things about the thing. That doesn't mean that there's not a place for it. It doesn't mean that Ole Miss isn't going to try to do it. But to live in that world can be very expensive defensively, especially when it is a team that, Alabama, that they don't play one brand of football. They're two tights. They're one tight. They're empty. They're in and out all the time. There's read game. There's power game. There's shot plays. There's a lot going on. And for you to commit to, okay, hey, I'm going to take this one guy, I'm going to spy him the whole game, when there's enough variation of the offense, that really can put a strain on your communication. Okay. There's other things you can do. And
this defense, right? The Golding defense, not to interrupt you, but just a quick thing that I've heard from people. The Golding defense requires a lot of communication, linebackers, back end.
Absolutely.
So you've worked spring, summer, 3 games on that communication based on 11. And when you put a guy as a spy, it does change some of the stuff. And you're at a place where it's loud. You're playing an athletic team, a talented team. I mean, they've got a bunch of good players. I think it's a lot to, and then you say, hey, that freshman's going to be Centurion Perkins. That's you're asking a lot. I mean, it's not. I'm not saying it won't work, but you are putting a lot on his plate.
Well, the other piece is this: fans get frustrated when a defense rushes 3 and doesn't get pressure, and they feel like a guy's got all day to throw the football. If you're playing a spy, you're probably rushing 3. And Ole Miss is not proven to be dynamic in pass rush. They just don't have that one guy that is consistently wreaking havoc. And so how much do you trust your secondary to let those guys just sit there forever and let him sit in the pocket while you're playing with the spy? So that there's a lot of different things that go into what does that thought process look like. I do think Ole Miss is going to be able to pressure him. It's going to be about how well do they contain him when they do choose to pressure. Okay, so going to show this one. This is 2 plays later. Again, same drive early in the game. This is just an example of poor decision-making here by Milroe. Okay, Alabama is going to, get in a pretty balanced set. It's a 3-by-1 set with the tight end. They do run the ball a decent amount from this formation. They're going to push the outside receiver vertical. The second receiver is going to push on an out route into a wheel. And the third receiver is going to run this out route. So they are trying to give him an easy read. Read the flat defender. Okay. Here's 23. If 23 turns and takes this out route, throw the stick right here to your third guy. Okay. What happens here is he gets baited. If you watch, 23 opens hips, collisions, but eyes immediately get back inside. Milroe thinks that guy's expanding to the flat. There he is falling back underneath the out route, the stick route, and going the other way with the football. So he has arm talent. There are times in this game, I mean, he really pushes the ball into some spots and does some good things. But here you see the intermediate stuff is where he missed to me in this game. People are going to miss deep balls, period. It's going to happen. They're not high percentage throws. He missed some intermediate throws, this being an example of one where he just doesn't see it, and it cost him big. So there are some opportunities, I think, for Ole Miss, to if they can play some games in coverage, give him some different looks. I do think there's opportunity to potentially confuse him, okay? This is where they don't live as an offense, but they do enough of it. Ole Miss is going to have to be better compared to how they played it, the other night. And so I don't have the coach's film of Ole Miss's defense from Tech. I just have the offensive film. So there were a couple of times during the game the other night, and I've seen this referenced on social media on the message board, where so they're running zone read. So the whole O-line here is blocking to the right. And what was happening the other night at Georgia Tech is the running back is taking his path, whether it be inside zone, mid zone, stretch, whatever. And the end is, as people like to say, was crashing down the line. He's got to stay home. Well, if the end is crashing down the line, that probably means it's not his job. Probably means that somebody, like this linebacker, is probably supposed to scrape over the top and end up being the quarterback player. Well, there was a particular snap in my head from the other night against Georgia Tech where they showed the replay and they showed the end zone copy, and the end squeezed. He did what he was supposed to do. He took the dive, and the backer is frozen with eyes inside, takes one false step, and it's all that they needed to get up to him. And when the quarterback kept it around the edge, there's nobody there until the secondary support could get there, and it was a converted first down at that point. Alabama is going to find 10 different ways at minimum to get into zone read situations, sometimes with an RPO, sometimes not. This is an example, okay? They put a tight end to the field as well as 2 additional receivers. So they are saying from a run structure standpoint, we gave you an extra gap to our right. From a coverage structure standpoint, we've given you 3 receivers to the right. The anticipation is maybe they roll the coverage or stress the front to the strength of the formation. So now they read the backside end. I would guess this defensive end, maybe he's supposed to play surf, which is the technique you see right here, where he starts to squeeze, gets back square, and slows down to surf and try to play them both. But now they're having to get the safety to come from depth and now go fit. And Milroe makes him miss and turns it into an 11, 12-yard gain on a very simple, easy read for him. Okay, because he is hard to tackle in space. He is dynamic as a runner. You're man-to-man on the receiver down here at the bottom, so it's hard to ask that corner to come off and make that play. And if that safety misses right there, or the D-end or the linebacker, if one of those guys misplays it, Milroe will dice you in a heartbeat and go turn it into a first down. So Ole Miss is going to have to do a great job handling all these different zone read looks. Okay, I'm going to give you another one here. Okay, same game, obviously a little bit later. All right, now they come out. They have one tight end to the right of the offense with nobody else out there. We call that a nub side. Okay, no receivers up top, just a tight end. To the left side, they have 2 receivers flexed out, and they have their second tight end as a slot player right next to the tackle on that side. So again, okay, as a defense, are you going to call your strength to the nub tight end for your front because we've created an on-the-ball gap, or are you going to call your strength to the 3 receiver side? Okay, your coverage strength has to rotate to this 3 receiver side. So what they're going to do, what Alabama's going to do here is they're going to run zone read away from that nub tight end. So the whole offensive line is blocking left here, okay? And that tight end is going to arc release to the overhang defender, in this case, the corner. If that D end plays this wrong, if they have not communicated who's the force, who's the dive player, who's the quarterback player, if that D end were to squeeze this, Milroe would be on the edge with the lead blocker and a whole lot of grass and a place to go. So these are some of these little things. I'm going to go to the end zone here where Ole Miss is just, you have to do a great job versus every offensive formation, understanding, especially when the back is to your side. What is my responsibility? What is my responsibility? Because those two guys, they have to work hand in hand. And if not those two, it means that this third guy now is part of that fit, and they have to be on the same page entirely. You can see here the D end, 88. He slow plays it. He's the quarterback player. Okay. 0 backdoors it. They probably want him to fit here. Okay. But they sling the fit. He's backdoor here. 41 is reading the back. As the back declares, 41 declares. But the thing that Ole Miss is going to have to do, okay, and I've seen some talk about the Alabama offensive line this year. All right. What Ole Miss is going to have to do is what 90 does right here for Texas. He controls the double team and does not let them get up to the backer. If he allows that combo to get him vertical and put him in the feet of that backer, it's a tough situation for the defense. Or if he allows one of them to take him over and he allows the other to climb to the backer, the offense wins the rep, and this ball is about to spit for a positive gain. What you see here is 90 puts hands on the guard and fills the center. He's throwing his hip into the center. He is doing that to try and prevent that combo from being able to combo up and leave and work to the backer. Ole Miss is going to have to do a great job on the interior of controlling those double teams. Okay. Moving on a little bit later in the same game, just looking at my notes here. Okay. This is what scares me the most about Milroe. His ability to extend plays, not just as a runner, but I was impressed with his demeanor when he escapes and starts to move around in the pocket. He is not trying to be a run-first player, even though there are probably times where they want him to be. He does a great job right here, stepping up in the pocket, feeling the pressure, slides away from the pressure, and immediately he knows where his checkdowns are. He knows where his easy throws are going to be, and he makes an accurate throw on the run. You know, you watch it from the end zone. There's no rush in what he's doing. He's in his drop. That's his read. He's going to throw his check down right now. He understands where he thinks this should go, and he feels it collapse. So I don't panic. I gather myself. I protect the ball. There's the easy throw downfield, and what Texas probably is thinking looks like a good situation for them suddenly just turned into a big first down, puts them down in the red zone. Okay, so now we're 3 plays later. Okay, similar situation right here. Okay, in the red zone, here comes the pressure. He feels the pressure. He's athletic enough to get away from it. If you don't contain the pocket, he will kill you. But right here, it's not the best throw ever, but he never loses sight of what the action is downfield, and he is able to get this ball out, and it's a tip ball that ends up being a touchdown for Alabama. But if you look at it, I mean, if this ball is 6 inches higher, it's an elite, perfect play. Okay, if it's 6 inches lower, it's an interception, and we're judging his decision-making. But as soon as he's outside of this pocket here, and he feels like he's cleared the defense, he's not panicking. He knows he can run, but he's scanning the field. He's keeping eyes downfield. And if you're not disciplined in your rush lanes, he's getting out of the pocket. He's going to beat you. If you're not disciplined on the back end and coverage in the scramble drill, you can find yourself in trouble because he will keep eyes downfield. He will find open guys. I think he does a really nice job of it. And this is the last one I want to show you because, I kind of said in the beginning, they are comfortable taking shots with him. He has a big arm to push it down the field. So here's another example. They took several in this game. Okay. Again, not affected by the pressure. They're trying to get him on a little half roll here. Okay. Trying to just move the pocket ever so slightly to let him set his feet. He gets pressure upfield. He feels that pressure, steps up underneath it, reclaims his footwork, gets back on platform, and they've got the double move being worked by the slot right here. And I mean, it's a dime, an absolute dime. They found a safety matched up in one-on-one coverage, and they're still Alabama, and they're still talent on the field. So I get it. You know, people haven't been blown away necessarily by this Alabama team, and you watch the South Florida performance, and I get it. You look at the score of this game. We don't know how good Texas is, but I think they're a good football team. We know they recruit well.
And it was a fourth quarter game. It got away, but it was a fourth quarter game, and I think Alabama led going into the fourth quarter. I mean, I'm not trying to pour cold water. I think it's a really close game. I think this is almost a coin toss Saturday, but boy, there's a level of confidence that I'm like, oh man, some of you are a little overconfident on this. It's still Alabama. It's still at Bryant-Denny.
Yeah, I don't see a way where Ole Miss goes in there and blows them out. I don't.
Yeah.
I think if you're Ole Miss, you want it to be a close game. You just want to end up on the right side of it. Because I think if it gets away from somebody, I don't see it being that it gets away from Alabama.
Defensively, I know you don't have film of it necessarily. I'm not asking for that, but just a scouting report on Alabama defensively. What do they do well? Where are they vulnerable, if anywhere?
You know, they're not. They're missing. You know, SEC fans got real used to seeing Anderson and you know, on the other side of the ball doing things, and he's not there anymore. And that obviously you lose that kind of player, it makes a difference. But they're not a bad football team by any means. They're not a bad defense by any means. I don't know if they're as explosive. You know, my understanding of Nick Saban has always been when you come to be a defense coordinator for Nick Saban, you run Nick Saban's defense, right? So if there was a change at some point, whether that was after spring, in the summer, after game one, I don't know. I think that's interesting. I don't know if that's the truth, but Lane Kiffin certainly seems to imply that it may be the case. So what they're trying to do is not different. You know, they're going to be sound. The one thing I'll say is this: watching the Texas offense against the Alabama defense, because I did watch it. Kiffin and Sarkisian, there's so many things. They probably trade ideas. Like literally, you know, they've been in the same scheme. I mean, they run so much of the same stuff, but like I'm watching Texas run things against Alabama, and I'm like, oh, I remember Lane calling that to Elijah Moore the first year. I remember Alabama, you know, I remember Ole Miss trying to do this 2 years ago or whatever. There were so many similarities in how they both choose to attack this Saban defense. And even some of the other things, like, I mean, one of the schemes that Ole Miss really got to a lot late in the year last year, there's a huge touchdown against Texas A&M, if you remember, where they basically fake toss sweep into the boundary. 2 outside receivers ran the post. Ole Miss had Jonathan Mingo as essentially a tight end off the ball, and he arced all the way around on the wheel route. Ole Miss hit him for a huge gain. Texas runs it against Alabama, you know. So there's so many ways where I think Kiffin and Sarkisian both they know what Nick wants to be defensively. They know how they've seen it so much. They know how to prepare for it, right? Pete Golding can tell them what gives them problems. And that's not a conversation they had on Monday. That's a conversation they probably had in April, you know, about what are some of the things that give you problems and that kind of stuff. And so I think Ole Miss is going to have a good plan. I feel confident in saying that on both sides of the football. Ole Miss is going to have a plan. If they are healthy, if they can play fast enough, and if they can create enough big plays on each side of the ball, Ole Miss, it's going to be a great ball game. You know, that's going to be the challenge because, again, like Alabama's offense, the defense isn't suddenly trash at Alabama. It's still Alabama. It's just not right now maybe at the level that people expect it to be.
Last thing, Your opinion, what has been the struggle with getting Quinshon Judkins going? I mean, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe he was a little banged up on Saturday against Georgia Tech, but they're just not getting anything resembling kind of the explosive plays that you saw a year ago with him that got him going, where he put up these massive numbers. And like I was asked today in Alabama, give me a scenario where Ole Miss wins. And I kept coming back to, well, they can't be just Jackson Dart running the football. That's asking too much, I think.
Absolutely.
And so I said it's got to be Quinshon or Bentley but somebody's got to go off, right? Got to get 100 yards. Got to stress Alabama defensively. You can't create a lot of third and long with, even if everybody's back, right? You've been around football long enough. I mean, Zachary Franklin and Caden Priestcorn haven't played they haven't practiced much. They haven't played in a month. They're not going to come in and just be instant impact superstars. That's not realistic. So you've got to get the running game going to take some pressure off that.
Part of it is the offensive line. I mean, we looked at that right after Tulane. Those guys still kind of trying to find their space and trying to really still gel as an offensive line. I do think that certainly plays a factor. I don't know. There was one, I was looking at my notes to see if I had marked it, and I didn't, or I would pull it up real quickly. There was one the other night against Tech where the nose came free, and somehow Judkins got under him and got away from him and spit, and it just happened to spit to the next guy, a safety that had folded in. And it was a 3-yard run. I was like, holy hell, that was a hell of a run. And it's honestly the way a lot of his runs looked last year. The difference was that safety just wasn't there, right? So, the RPO game has to work for the Ole Miss run game to work. That's part of it. That there's a reason that they invest so heavily in that RPO game, because it alleviates so much of what they want to do. Their tempo has always played a role in their run game. They've got to get the tempo going. The O-line has to play better, and they need a tight end that can be an effective player in the box. It's just, who knows? I can't. I'm not going to speculate and tell you there's something going on before. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I do think he's been banged up. I mean, that's not a secret. But there's just so many elements at play with how Ole Miss wants to try and run the football that it's all got to come together at some point for him to see the results he had last year.
Pete, as always, man, it's always educational. Yeah, it was almost kind of sobering on the Jalen Milroe part, but I've known that.
Sorry.
No, it's guys. People need to see it. I remember last season, the game that with him that sticks out that people don't ever talk about because the final score got lopsided. But if you remember, it was late third quarter. Bryce Young had gotten hurt in Fayetteville, and Arkansas was making a run. KJ Jefferson was getting it going, and a blowout game suddenly was a one-score game. And the game went to the fourth quarter. Milroe, it was third and I want to say 13, third and 14. They're backed up at their own 10, 11-yard line. Place is going crazy. They're starting to feel it. Hey, we got Alabama on the ropes, and they did. They had Alabama stumbling. And Milroe takes kind of a broken play and runs 80 yards down to the one. They score. They get it back, score again. And again, it turned into a blowout, and Alabama played so many close games all year that those were the games that everybody talked about, Ole Miss and Texas A&M, right? And those games. But he saved them that day with his athleticism and his feet and his ability to outrun everybody. And then, he beat Texas A&M as a starter. And I know that game came down to a final play, and the focus was on Jimbo's play call and all of that, but he won that game. I mean, it's not like he's the backup at Holmes Community College getting thrown in there saying, good luck, champ.
Yeah. He's not going to show up Saturday and win a Heisman Trophy, I don't think. But he's going to miss. He misses. He does, right? I mean, every quarterback does. But If he doesn't, he has flashed the ability to do a lot of good things. It's going to be for him and for that offense about how well do they protect him, how well can they run the ball to keep him out of long down and distance situations, and and how can he limit the misses. And that's where they find success with him at quarterback. I'll be curious to see, in my recollection, probably not since freaking Tyler Watts, has Alabama really said we're going to run the quarterback. That's who we are consistently. I don't know if that's who Nick wants to be. I don't know if that's who they're going to suddenly turn into. Could it possibly be the best version of them? Yes. Could their run game look very similar to Ole Miss at times in the way that they run the quarterback intentionally? They haven't necessarily shown that. They give him opportunities to read. There's not a lot of just designed, hey, we're about to run the ball with him, right? So I'll be curious to see if they kind of employ any of that on Saturday. But I'm excited for the game. I think it's going to be fun.
Should be a great one. Again, thanks so much for your time. Again, thanks to Riverland Roofing for sponsoring this show. You can get in touch with them, text or call at 662-644-4297. They're licensed and insured. They service Mississippi and the surrounding states. So if you're watching this, listening to this, you are probably in that area. So give the people at Riverland a call when you need any roofing inspection, a new roof, or a maintenance program for your current roof. Pete, as always, man, thanks very much. Look forward to talking to you next week. We'll look back at Alabama and look ahead to LSU. It doesn't get any easier. LSU coming to Oxford next Saturday for a 5 p.m. game on ESPN. So until that time, that's it for Pete's Pigskin Preview presented by Riverland Roofing. For Pete Deweese, I'm Neil McCready. Have a great weekend. Take care.